Every day, billions of dollars move silently across the world. Through wires, through servers, through invisible hands. And somewhere in that digital chaos, a group of hackers saw an opportunity. Not to steal a wallet. Not to rob a bank vault. But to break into the heart of a nation's central bank. And walk away with $1 billion. This wasn't done with masks and guns. No alarms. No getaway cars. Just a few lines of code. And a tiny mistake that shook the global banking system. They got in. They sent the transfer orders. And the money? It was on its way. They made their move. And what followed became a case study in global cybercrime. You're watching Dark Archives, where real stories are worth remembering. Let's get into it. $1 billion bank robbery, that's the goal here. But that's like, impossible. Who would have $1 billion lying around for someone to grab? $1 billion is a lot of money. Your average consumer bank like your local Chase or Wells Fargo bank branch is not gonna have this much money anywhere, probably not even in their bank headquarters, so your typical bank is out. We have to aim higher, possibly like a Federal Reserve Bank or something, some bigger place that has a lot of money. The robbers knew that national banks would have a large amount of money like this, like a country's reserve bank, so they started looking around for what national banks might be a good target. They chose the Bangladesh Bank. This was an interesting target to choose as far as central banks go. Bangladesh has a growing economy and is starting to really flourish, but it's still a developing nation and its central bank doesn't have the best security. I don't know, which might make this an easier target than a more developed nation's national bank, like the US Federal Reserve Bank. The Bangladesh Bank became the target. Which is the National Bank of Bangladesh. It's like the Federal Reserve Bank or the Bank of England. It's like the country's bank. Billions of dollars of reserve currency is sitting in there. Alright, so the target is set. Now, this group has a special weapon, they're pretty good hackers. So, their plan isn't to bust down the door. Draw their weapons, and shout, "Everyone on the floor, give me $1 billion." No, that's not an option here. Instead, the plan was to hack into the Bangladesh bank and transfer out as much money as they could before anyone could catch them. It starts a full year before. I think it was January 2015, the first email started popping up inside Bangladesh Bank. A few employees get the classic phishing email. It's a zip file that contains a CV for somebody who looks like a job applicant. Opens the zip file, has a look at the CV or perhaps doesn't ever get the CV but nonetheless, they get infected. 3 people opened the email in Bangladesh Bank and at least one of them got infected. Once inside the network, the hackers didn't have full access, not yet. That phishing email only gave them a foothold, one employee's computer. But from there, they began to spread. Step by step, machine by machine, they moved deeper into the Bangladesh Bank systems. They deployed 3 custom-built malware tools. One opened a backdoor into the network. The second created a secure, encrypted tunnel to exfiltrate data. And the third helped them scan the internal network, mapping it out and moving laterally. Over time, they learned everything. Where files were stored, which systems were critical. And most importantly, where the money actually was. Surprise, it wasn't even in Bangladesh. The Bangladesh Bank held a foreign currency reserve account in New York, at the Federal Reserve Bank. Roughly $1 billion, just sitting there. The hackers had their prize. Now they needed a way to move it. That's where SWIFT comes in, the global financial messaging system used by over 11,000 banks across more than 200 countries. It doesn't hold money, but it tells banks where to send money. And if you can control it, you can move billions. So the hackers searched for the computer running the SWIFT software. And yes, they found it. They didn't attack SWIFT directly. That would have been nearly impossible. Instead, they watched how real users interacted with the system. They studied their habits, their patterns, their language. And then, they began to impersonate them. Not clumsily. Flawlessly. In fact, they navigated the SWIFT system so smoothly, it raised a chilling thought: these weren't amateurs. They knew exactly what they were doing. Maybe they had used SWIFT before. Maybe they worked with a bank in the past. Either way, they didn't need to guess. That was the story we told last time. They went straight to the commands. But just moving the money wasn't enough. They had to make it look normal. So they studied the bank's records, real, high-value transfers. They analyzed everything: the timing, the recipients, the descriptions. And when they were ready, they began crafting their own transfer requests. Ones that looked exactly like the real thing. They weren't just sending money. They were blending in. With access to the SWIFT terminal and the Bangladesh bank's credentials, the hackers now stood at the edge of the final phase. With just a few keystrokes, they could move up to $1 billion from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, into accounts they controlled. But sending one huge transfer? That would be reckless. A single billion-dollar movement could raise red flags, trigger extra authorizations, maybe even halt the process entirely. Instead, they did what experienced money launderers do: they broke it up. Multiple smaller transfers. Each one just large enough to matter, but not large enough to scream fraud. Months earlier, May 2015, 5 accounts had been quietly opened at RCBC Bank, on Jupiter Street in Manila, Philippines. Each with a modest $500 deposit. They sat untouched, silent, waiting. Fast forward to February 3, 2016. It was a Thursday night in Bangladesh, the start of the weekend there. Most employees had gone home. The systems were quiet. That's when the hackers struck again. They re-entered the bank's network, navigated to the SWIFT terminal, and began issuing transfer orders. Not one. 36 separate transactions. All carefully written. All formatted to look legitimate. All aimed at draining the reserve account in New York. The total? $951 million. But the real brilliance wasn't just in the amount, it was in the timing. This wasn't just a weekend. It was a long weekend. Bangladesh was off from Thursday night. And Monday, February 8th, was Chinese New Year, a public holiday in much of Asia. 3 days with minimal oversight. Meanwhile, in New York, it was Friday morning. The Federal Reserve was open, processing transactions. And in the Philippines, the recipient banks were also active. 3 time zones. 3 banking systems. 1 synchronized operation. And with the long weekend in Bangladesh, the stage was perfectly set for the transfers to go unnoticed, at least for now. In the Philippines, that's where those RCBC bank accounts were waiting. You've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. 5 days. 3 time zones. All working in the hackers' favor. Friday morning in New York. The Federal Reserve starts getting SWIFT transaction requests. They all look like they're coming from Bangladesh Bank. The Fed begins processing. Money starts flying out, account by account. Millions here. Millions there. One of those transactions, heading to a hacker's account in Sri Lanka. $20 million, meant for a charity in Sri Lanka. That's a huge number for any charity, let alone this one. The Fed approves it. The money starts moving, on its way through an intermediary bank in Germany. But it gets stopped. Why? Because of one tiny human error. The transfer was supposed to go to the Shalika Foundation, but someone typed it Shalika Foundation. Missing an O. That single typo. It rang alarm bells. The Sri Lankan bank flagged it. They contacted the German bank, the one that passed the money through. Germany took a closer look, and sent it all back to New York. Back in the US, panic starts creeping in. The Fed begins to realize, something's wrong. They try calling Bangladesh Bank. But it's Friday, and in Bangladesh, Friday is the weekend. No one answers. By then, the first phase was already complete. The hackers had broken into the Bangladesh bank, sent transfer requests to the New York Fed, and instructed them to send nearly $1 billion to 36 different accounts. By 3:59 a.m. Friday, local time in the Philippines, the hackers logged out of the Bangladesh bank's SWIFT network. Then their malware kicked in, deleting everything. But hold on, doesn't a bank have some kind of backup? Well, sort of. There was an HP LaserJet printer. Its job? Printing every SWIFT transaction that came in. Even on weekends, that printer should have been spitting out paper. A dozen transactions per day, maybe more. Those paper logs were a key line of defense. So were the employees checking them. That Friday, the man in charge was Zubair, a director at the bank. But the hackers had already thought of that. If the printer worked, it would expose everything. So they hacked it. Made it print blank pages. Then installed malware on the connected computer, wiping every trace of what they did. Zubair was there. He saw the printer acting weird, just spitting out empty sheets. He assumed it was just some technical glitch and he could deal with it on Saturday. But Saturday brought something far worse. When the Bangladesh bank employees tried to log into the SWIFT terminal, they were seeing errors and couldn't log in. When they finally got in, they found 3 messages from the New York Fed Reserve asking about the large number of payment instructions received over the Bangladeshi weekend, which together totaled almost $1 billion. At this point, Zubair was panicked. He tried to call New York, but it was Saturday, and in the US, the banks were closed. He starts emailing and faxing requests to the Federal Reserve, asking them to stop all related transactions. At the same time, Bangladesh bank employees shut down their server, a desperate attempt to prevent more fraudulent transfers. But here's the problem: the international banking system isn't simple. It's not just New York to the Philippines, or New York to Sri Lanka. There are intermediaries. A lot of them. So now it's one bank calling another. Wait, where did this money come from? Who authorized this? Where did it go after that? While 36 transactions were attempted, totaling almost $1 billion, only 4 actually made it through. The hackers succeeded in transferring $81 million into the 5 RCBC bank accounts they had quietly opened nearly a year earlier, using fake IDs. One big reason the money made it there. The transfers happened during Chinese New Year. RCBC Bank was closed when Bangladesh tried to stop them. But maybe that's not the whole story. Some allege there was an insider at RCBC helping make this possible. The timeline was very suspicious. On February 9th, RCBC logs into the SWIFT system and sees Bangladesh Bank stop payment messages. Yet, that same day, the hackers managed to completely drain the accounts. And once the money was withdrawn, it was gone. There was a whole system ready to move the cash and erase its trail. Fast. Silent. Untraceable. A huge chunk, $30 million, went to a single man, a Chinese national. He took the money and vanished. No trace. No answers. Maybe he was part of the operation. Maybe this was his cut. We'll never know. That still left $50 million. So the hackers turned to the next phase of the plan. But think about it, where do you hide that much money without getting caught? And most importantly, would they actually get away with it? This is what we'll uncover in part 2. What do you think happened next? Drop your predictions in the comments. And don't miss the next episode, where the story takes a wild turn. If you found this story insane, give it a like, share it with a friend who loves true crime and crazy hacks. And don't forget to subscribe. Because we're not done yet. There are still stories waiting, in the dark archives.